The sun dipped low over the endless prairie of Texas as Sophia Anderson watched her father storming toward the house. A stranger in tow whose weathered face and calculating eyes told her everything she needed to know. Trouble had come to their door. It was 1875, 3 years since they'd moved to this desolate stretch of land after her mother's death. And Sophia had learned that when her father had that particular gleam in his eye, the one that matched the shine of a whiskey bottle, her life was about to change, and rarely for the better. "Get in here, girl," Elijah Anderson bellowed, slamming open the door of their modest homestead. "Got someone you ought to meet." Sophia, 20 years old with honey-brown hair and eyes the color of a summer storm, set down the pot she'd been scrubbing and wiped her hands on her apron. The stranger behind her father was older, perhaps 45, with a substantial paunch straining against his waistcoat. His eyes traveled over her in a way that made her skin crawl. "This here's Mr. Holloway," her father announced, his words slurring slightly. "Owns half the cattle between here and San Antonio. And he's looking for a wife." "Pleased to meet you, sir," Sophia said quietly, keeping her eyes downcast as she'd learned to do when her father was in one of his moods. "Pretty little thing," Holloway remarked, circling her like she was a mare at auction. "Bit thin, but I can fix that. Good hips for bearing children." Her father chuckled, and Sophia's stomach turned to ice. "We've agreed on a price, girl. $200, and you'll be Mrs. Holloway by Sunday." The world seemed to stop spinning. "Father, you cannot be serious." The back of his hand connected with her cheek before she could finish the sentence. "Don't you talk back to me," he snarled. "You'll do as you're told. I've fed and clothed you for 20 years, and now you'll pay your debt." Sophia's mind raced as she fought back tears. Her father had been drinking and gambling away what little they had for years, but she never imagined he would sink this low. She glanced toward the door, calculating her chances of escaping, but where would she run? They were miles from the nearest town, and a woman alone on the frontier was as good as dead. "Mr. Holloway will return tomorrow with the papers and the money," her father continued. "You'll be ready." It wasn't a request. That night, after her father had passed out in his chair, Sophia gathered what few possessions she could carry. She had to get away, even if just to buy some time. With trembling hands, she took the small portrait of her mother, a change of clothes, and the meager savings she'd managed to hide from her father over the years, barely enough for a stagecoach ticket, if she could reach the station. As the first light of dawn broke across the horizon, Sophia slipped out the back door and began walking eastward, toward the town of Willow Creek. Her heart hammered in her chest as she listened for the sound of hoofbeats behind her, certain that her father would wake and come after her the moment he discovered her absence. She'd been walking for hours when she heard the approaching rider. Terror seized her as she dove behind a cluster of scrub brush, praying whoever it was would pass without noticing her. The horse slowed, and Sophia held her breath. "Madam," a deep voice called out. "I can see your skirts from here. Are you in trouble?" Sophia remained silent, weighing her options. The voice didn't belong to her father or Holloway. "I mean you no harm," the voice continued. "But a lady shouldn't be out here alone. These parts ain't safe." Slowly, Sophia rose from her hiding place, clutching her small bundle to her chest. The man on horseback was perhaps 25, with broad shoulders and a face tanned by the sun. His dark hair curled beneath a well-worn hat, and his eyes, a startling blue, regarded her with concern rather than the predatory interest she'd come to expect from men. "I'm heading to Willow Creek," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "My business is my own." The cowboy nodded, seemingly respecting her reticence. "Name's Jackson James. Most folks call me Jack. I'm headed that way myself. Would be safer if you'd accept a ride." Sophia hesitated. Trusting strangers wasn't wise, but her feet were already blistered, and she knew she couldn't outrun her father on foot. "I can walk behind if you'd prefer to keep your distance," Jack offered, as if sensing her uncertainty. "But there's wolves out here, and worse." Something in his straightforward manner made Sophia decide to take a chance. "I would appreciate the ride, Mr. James." "Thank you." He extended a hand and helped her onto the horse behind him. "Hold on," he instructed, and she tentatively placed her hands at his waist, uncomfortable with the intimacy but having little choice. They rode in silence for a while before Jack spoke again. "Whatever you're running from, It must be serious to have you out here alone. Sophia stiffened. What makes you think I'm running? Jack chuckled. Most folks heading to town take the road, not cut across open country. And they generally bring more than can fit in a handkerchief. She remained silent, unwilling to share her predicament with a stranger, no matter how kind he seemed. Well, he continued when she didn't respond, your secret's safe with me. I've got no right to pry. As they crested a small rise, Sophia glanced back and felt her heart drop. In the distance, she could make out two riders moving quickly in their direction. Mr. James, she said urgently. Those men behind us, I believe one is my father. He's not a good man. Jack followed her gaze, then urged his horse to a faster pace. Hold tight, he instructed. We'll try to lose them in that stand of trees ahead. They raced toward the small forest, the sound of the pursuing riders growing louder. Just as they reached the tree line, a shot rang out, causing birds to erupt from the branches above them. Your father seems mighty determined for a social call, Jack remarked grimly, guiding his horse deeper into the woods. He sold me, Sophia blurted out, the words tumbling from her lips before she could stop them. To a man named Holloway. For $200. Jack pulled the horse to a halt and turned to look at her, his expression one of disbelief and then anger. Sold you? Like property. As a wife, Sophia clarified, though the distinction hardly mattered. I refused, so I ran. Another shot echoed through the trees, closer this time. We need to keep moving, Jack said, his jaw set in determination. Willow Creek's still a few hours' ride. My brother has a ranch just beyond these woods. We'll head there instead. They rode hard through the trees, the sounds of pursuit fading and then disappearing altogether. By midday, they emerged on the other side of the forest and rode across open grassland toward a modest ranch house with a barn and several corrals. As they approached, a man who looked remarkably like Jack, though perhaps a few years older, came out onto the porch, rifle in hand. That's James, Jack explained. My brother. You named your brother James? Sophia couldn't help asking, momentarily distracted from her fear. Jack laughed, a warm sound that seemed to cut through the tension. His name's Jeremy, but folks around here just call him James to avoid confusion. Jeremy lowered his rifle as they drew near. Didn't expect to see you back so soon, little brother, he called out. And with company, no less. Jack dismounted and helped Sophia down. This lady's in some trouble. Her father's tracking her, along with another man. They've got guns and aren't afraid to use them. Jeremy's expression grew serious. Madam, any friend of Jack's is welcome here. Come inside while we figure this out. The inside of the James brothers' home was simple but clean, with sturdy furniture and the lingering scent of coffee in the air. Sophia sat at the kitchen table, accepting the cup Jeremy offered her with gratitude. Now, Jeremy said, taking a seat across from her, perhaps you'd better tell us exactly what's happening. Sophia took a deep breath and explained her situation, her father's drinking and gambling, his arrangement with Holloway, and her desperate flight. He actually tried to sell you? Jeremy shook his head in disgust. Some men have no business being fathers. Or men, Jack added, his voice tight with anger. No offense, Miss Anderson, but your father deserves a bullet for what he's done. It wouldn't be the first terrible thing he's done, Sophia admitted quietly. After my mother died, he changed. Or perhaps he was always this way, and she somehow kept his worst instincts in check. Jack and Jeremy exchanged a look. You can stay here as long as you need, Jeremy offered. We've got a spare room, and no one will bother you. I couldn't impose, Sophia began. It's no imposition, Jack interrupted. And it's safer than trying to make it to town. Your father might be watching the roads. Jeremy nodded in agreement. Jack's right. Besides, my wife will be glad for another woman around the place. She'll be back from visiting her sister in a day or two. Sophia felt tears threatening to spill. She wasn't accustomed to kindness, especially from strangers. Thank you. I don't know how I'll ever repay you. No need, Jack said simply. It's what decent folks do. For the next few days, Sophia settled into life at the James Ranch. She helped with cooking and household chores, grateful for the chance to be useful and to repay some small measure of the brothers' kindness. Jack showed her around the property, teaching her about the daily operations of the ranch and introducing her to the various animals. On the third day, as they were checking on a new foal in the barn, Jack broached a subject Sophia had been avoiding. Have you thought about what you'll do next? You can't hide forever. Sophia sighed, reaching out to stroke the foal's soft muzzle. I know. I thought perhaps I could find work in a larger town, somewhere my father wouldn't think to look. I can sew and cook, and I've been educated well enough to teach children their letters. Jack leaned against a post, studying her. That's an option. But your father and this Holloway fella, they might not give up so easily. Men like that, when they think they own something or someone they don't like being told no. What would you suggest? Sophia asked, turning to face him. I've been thinking on it, Jack admitted. My friend runs the telegraph office in Willow Creek. I could send a message to the marshal in the next county. Might be he could help sort this out legally. Legally? Sophia echoed. My father hasn't broken any laws that I know of. Arranging marriages, even selling daughters to husbands, it happens more often than people like to admit. Jack's expression darkened. It ain't right, even if some folks turn a blind eye. But if he fired at us, that's attempted murder. That, the law takes seriously. Before Sophia could respond, they heard the sound of horses approaching. Jack immediately moved to the barn door, his hand dropping to the revolver at his hip. Stay here, he instructed, his voice low and urgent. And if something happens, there's a trapdoor under that pile of hay that leads to a root cellar. Get down there and stay quiet. Sophia's heart raced as Jack slipped out of the barn. She moved to the small window, trying to see what was happening. 3 riders had entered the yard: her father, Holloway, and a third man she didn't recognize. Jeremy was on the porch, his stance wary but not yet openly hostile. She couldn't hear what was being said, but she could see her father gesturing angrily while Holloway sat impassively on his horse. Jack joined his brother on the porch, his posture tense. The conversation appeared to grow heated. Suddenly, her father dismounted and started toward the house, only to be blocked by Jack. Even from a distance, Sophia could see the fury on her father's face as he jabbed a finger into Jack's chest. What happened next occurred so quickly that Sophia barely had time to register it. Her father reached for his gun, but Jack was faster, drawing and aiming in one fluid motion. He didn't fire, however, merely held his weapon trained on Elijah Anderson while Jeremy leveled his rifle at the other 2 men. After a tense moment, her father backed down, returning to his horse with reluctance evident in every step. The 3 men conferred briefly, then turned their mounts and rode away, though not before her father cast a long look back at the ranch house. Sophia's legs gave out, and she sank to the barn floor, trembling with relief and residual fear. Minutes later, Jack returned, his expression grim but determined. They're gone for now, he reported, crouching beside her. Your father claims you stole money from him before you left. Said he just wants what's his. Sophia shook her head vehemently. I took only what I earned myself, mending clothes for townsfolk. He's lying. I believe you, Jack assured her. And I told him as much. I also made it clear that you're not for sale, at any price. What did he say to that? Jack's mouth quirked in a humorless smile. Nothing printable in front of a lady. But he and Holloway got the message. They know if they come back, they'll be met with more than just words. They'll return, Sophia said, certain of it. My father doesn't give up easily, especially when his pride is wounded. Then we'll be ready, Jack promised. He hesitated, then added, there's another option, if you're willing to consider it. Sophia looked at him questioningly. We could get married, he suggested, the words coming out in a rush. Just on paper, mind you. For protection. A married woman has rights that a single one doesn't, and your father wouldn't have any claim on you. Sophia stared at him, stunned by the proposal. You would do that? For a woman you barely know? Jack shrugged, looking somewhat embarrassed. It wouldn't be a real marriage unless... Well, unless someday you wanted it to be. But it would give you legal protection, and you could stay here as long as you need to figure things out. The offer was tempting more than tempting. In the few days Sophia had known Jack, she'd glimpsed a kindness and integrity that she'd thought no longer existed in men. But marriage, even one in name only, was a serious commitment. I need time to think, she said finally. Jack nodded, rising to his feet. Of course, there's no rush. Just know the offer stands. That night, Sophia lay awake in the small bedroom the brothers had provided, turning over Jack's proposal in her mind. Marriage had never been something she'd particularly wanted, having seen firsthand how miserable her parents' union had become. But marriage to Jack, even as a legal convenience, would be different from what her father had arranged with Holloway. She was still deliberating the next morning when Jeremy's wife, Clara, returned from visiting her sister. Clara was a warm, practical woman who immediately made Sophia feel welcome. "So you're the girl who's turned everything upside down," Clara remarked as they prepared breakfast together. "The boys told me what happened. Your father should be horsewhipped." Sophia flushed. "I'm sorry to bring trouble to your home." "Nonsense," Clara waved away her apology. "Jack says he offered to marry you. For protection." "Yes," Sophia admitted, wondering how much else Jack had shared with his family. "I haven't given him an answer yet." Clara nodded thoughtfully as she flipped the bacon in the skillet. "Jack's a good man. The best I know, aside from my Jeremy. He wouldn't have offered if he didn't mean it." "I know," Sophia replied. "That's what makes it so difficult. I don't want him to feel obligated." "Obligated?" Clara laughed. "Honey, Jack doesn't do anything out of obligation. If he offered, it's because he wants to help. And maybe because he sees something in you that interests him." Sophia felt her cheeks grow warm. "We've only just met." "Sometimes that's all it takes," Clara said with a knowing smile. "Jeremy asked me to marry him 3 days after we met. When it's right, you just know." Before Sophia could respond, the kitchen door opened, and Jack entered, removing his hat as he did so. "Morning, ladies. Something smells mighty fine." "Just bacon and biscuits," Clara told him. "Nothing you haven't had 100 times before." "Still smells better when someone else cooks it," Jack replied with a grin, his eyes meeting Sophia's briefly before looking away. Throughout breakfast, Sophia found herself stealing glances at Jack, noticing the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the careful way he listened when others spoke, the quiet confidence in his movements. There was something about him that drew her, something beyond his handsome face and the kindness he'd shown her. After the meal, Jack asked Sophia if she'd like to ride out to check on some cattle with him. She agreed, eager for the chance to talk privately. They rode side by side across the rolling grassland, the morning sun casting long shadows before them. Sophia marveled at the beauty of the land, so different from the hardscrabble patch her father had scraped a living from. "Your ranch is beautiful," she commented, breaking the comfortable silence between them. "It's not much compared to some," Jack replied. "But it's good land, and we've made it work. Jeremy and I built most of it with our own hands after our pa died. You must be proud of what you've accomplished." Jack nodded. "It's a good life. Hard, but good." He glanced at her. "Could be a good life for a woman, too. The right woman." Sophia felt her heart quicken at his words. "About your offer," she began, gathering her courage. "I've been thinking." Jack reined his horse to a stop, turning in his saddle to face her fully. "And why did you really offer to marry me, Mr. James? Was it just to protect me from my father?" Jack considered her question for a long moment. "I won't lie to you, Miss Anderson. Protection was part of it. But there's something about you that—" He trailed off, seemingly searching for the right words. "I've known many women in my life, but none that made me want to offer marriage within days of meeting them. Even if it's just on paper?" Sophia pressed. A slow smile spread across Jack's face. "I said it could be just on paper if that's what you wanted. I never said that's what I wanted." Sophia's breath caught. "What are you saying exactly?" "I'm saying that I'd be proud to have you as my wife in every sense of the word, if you'd be willing." Jack's blue eyes were earnest, his expression open and vulnerable in a way that made Sophia's heart ache. "But I'd never press you for more than you're comfortable giving." "You barely know me," Sophia pointed out, though the objection felt hollow even to her own ears. "I know enough," Jack replied simply. "I know you're brave and strong. I know you stand up for yourself, even when it's dangerous to do so. I know you're kind to animals and respectful to others. I know you have beautiful eyes that see more than most people notice." He paused, his gaze never leaving hers. "What else do I need to know?" Sophia was speechless, moved by his words and the sincerity behind them. No one had ever spoken to her this way, as if she were valuable for herself and not just as a possession. "I accept your proposal," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "But not just for protection. I would like to be your wife. Truly your wife." The joy that transformed Jack's features was like sunshine breaking through clouds. He dismounted quickly and came to help her down from her horse, his hands strong and steady at her waist. When she was standing before him, he took her hands in his. "I promise to be a good husband to you, Sophia Anderson. To protect you, provide for you, and treat you with the respect you deserve. And I promise to be a good wife to you, Jackson James," Sophia replied, her heart full. "To stand by your side, to share your burdens, and to build a life together." Jack leaned forward slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wished. Instead, Sophia closed the distance between them, meeting his lips with her own in a sweet, tentative kiss that held the promise of deeper passion to come. They were married 3 days later by the preacher in Willow Creek, with Jeremy and Clara serving as witnesses. Sophia wore a simple blue dress that Clara had helped her alter, and Jack looked uncommonly tidy in his best shirt and polished boots. It was a small, quiet ceremony, but as they exchanged their vows, Sophia felt a sense of rightness that she'd never experienced before. The newlyweds returned to the ranch that evening to a celebratory dinner prepared by Clara. As they sat around the table, sharing food and stories, Sophia realized that she'd found something she'd never had before: a family bound by choice and love rather than blood and obligation. Later that night, as she and Jack retired to what was now their bedroom, she felt nervous but not afraid. Jack sensed her apprehension and was gentle in his approach, taking his time to make her comfortable, to show her that intimacy could be beautiful rather than something to be endured. "We have all the time in the world," he assured her, stroking her hair as they lay together in the darkness. "Nothing needs to happen tonight that you don't want." Sophia reached up to touch his face, tracing the strong line of his jaw. "I want to be your wife in every way," she whispered. I've never." Jack pressed a soft kiss to her forehead. "I know, and I'm honored to be the first. The only, if I have any say in it." Their lovemaking that night was tender and unhurried, a discovery of each other that left Sophia breathless and wondering how she could have ever feared this union. In Jack's arms, she found not possession but partnership, not dominance but mutual pleasure. 2 weeks passed in domestic tranquility. Sophia settled into life as Mrs. Jackson James, learning the rhythms of the ranch and finding joy in the simplest of daily tasks when shared with Jack. She wrote letters to her childhood friend in another town, sharing the news of her marriage and her happiness. Each day, she found herself falling more deeply in love with her husband, discovering new reasons to admire his character and his heart. The peace was shattered one afternoon when a rider approached the ranch at a gallop. Jack and Jeremy were out checking fences, and only Sophia and Clara were at home. "Mrs. James," the rider called out, reining his horse to a stop before the house. "Urgent message for you and your husband." Sophia recognized the man as Tom Miller, who worked at the livery stable in town. "What's happened, Mr. Miller?" "Your father's in town," Miller reported, removing his hat. "Him and that Holloway fella. They're asking questions about you, saying you're Holloway's intended bride and that Jack James kidnapped you." Sophia's blood ran cold. "That's a lie. Jack and I are legally married. I have the certificate to prove it." "I believe you, madam," Miller assured her. "But they're stirring up trouble. Holloway's flashing money around, trying to get information. And your father's been drinking, making threats." Clara stepped forward, her expression grim. "Where are they now?" "At the saloon, last I saw. Marshall's keeping an eye on them, but he asked me to ride out and warn you folks." "Thank you," Sophia said. "We'll tell Jack and Jeremy as soon as they return." After Miller departed, Clara squeezed Sophia's shoulder reassuringly. "Don't worry. Those men can't touch you now. You're a married woman." "It's not myself I'm worried about," Sophia admitted. "My father is dangerous when he's been drinking, and Holloway is used to getting what he wants." "The James brothers can handle themselves," Clara said confidently. "But perhaps we should prepare, just in case." They spent the next hour checking the rifles and securing the house. When Jack and Jeremy returned, they were quickly informed of the situation. "I figured they might try something like this," Jack said, his expression hardening. "But spreading lies in town crosses a line." "What will you do?" Sophia asked anxiously. Jack exchanged a look with his brother. "I think it's time we paid a visit to town ourselves. Set the record straight." "I'm coming with you," Sophia declared, her chin lifting in determination. "Absolutely not," Jack responded immediately. "It's too dangerous. These men are saying you kidnapped me," Sophia pointed out. The most effective way to disprove that is for me to appear in town, freely at your side, as your wife. Jack hesitated, clearly torn between protecting her and acknowledging the logic of her argument. She has a point, Jeremy admitted. If I stay hidden, it only gives credence to their lies, Sophia continued. I won't cower in fear of my father anymore, Jack. I'm your wife now, and I'll stand with you. Jack's expression softened as he looked at her, pride mingling with concern in his eyes. You're a brave woman, Sophia James. Braver than I gave you credit for. He sighed. All right, but you stay close to me, and if trouble starts, you get to safety. Promise me. I promise, Sophia agreed. When do we leave? First light tomorrow, Jack decided. No sense riding into town at dusk, when men have been drinking all day. That night, as they lay together in bed, Jack held Sophia close, his heartbeat steady beneath her cheek. Are you afraid? He asked softly. Sophia considered the question. Not of my father, not anymore. I'm afraid of what he might try to do to you, though. Jack's arms tightened around her. Don't worry about me. I can handle Elijah Anderson. I know you can, Sophia murmured. But promise me you'll be careful. I've only just found you. I couldn't bear to lose you. Jack tilted her face up to his, kissing her with a tenderness that made her heart swell. You won't lose me. We're just beginning our life together, and I plan to be around for a long, long time. Morning came too quickly. They ate a silent breakfast before saddling their horses, the atmosphere tense with anticipation. Jeremy would accompany them, while Clara remained at the ranch with a loaded shotgun, just in case. The ride to Willow Creek took just over an hour. As they approached the town, Sophia felt her anxiety mounting, but she was determined not to show it. She rode tall in her saddle, her head high, her new wedding ring gleaming in the morning sunlight. The town was quiet at this early hour, with only a few people moving about on their morning errands. Jack led them directly to the marshal's office, where Marshal Davis greeted them with a grim nod. Figured you'd be showing up, Davis said, gesturing them inside. Had a feeling those men weren't telling the straight story. Jack introduced Sophia as his wife, and she showed the marshal their marriage certificate. My father is trying to cause trouble, she explained. He arranged to sell me to Mr. Holloway before I escaped and found refuge with the James family. The marshal's bushy eyebrows rose. Sell you? That's a serious accusation, Mrs. James. It's the truth, Sophia insisted. Ask my father yourself. He received a down payment of $50, with another $150 due upon delivery. Like she was a sack of flour, Jack added, his disgust evident. Marshal Davis stroked his beard thoughtfully. Well, I can't arrest a man for trying to arrange a marriage, distasteful as it might be. But if they're spreading false accusations about kidnapping, that's another matter. Where are they staying? Jeremy asked. The hotel, Davis replied. Been there since yesterday afternoon, drinking and talking big. Holloway's claiming he has a written agreement with Elijah Anderson for his daughter's hand. Sophia's eyes widened. That's impossible. I never signed anything. Doesn't matter if you signed, the marshal explained. In some places, a father's consent is all that's legally required for a marriage contract, especially if money changed hands. Jack's jaw tightened. She's my wife now. Any prior arrangement is null and void. I agree, Davis said. But Holloway's the type to push his claim, legal or not. And your father-in-law seems determined to get his money. The door to the marshal's office swung open, and Sophia's heart stopped as Elijah Anderson himself walked in, followed closely by Holloway. Both men froze at the sight of her. Well, her father drawled, his bloodshot eyes narrowing. If it ain't the ungrateful daughter herself. Mr. Anderson, Marshal Davis said sharply, I was just discussing with your daughter and her husband the accusations you've been making. Husband, Holloway spat. She's promised to me. Got the papers right here. He patted his vest pocket. We have a marriage certificate, Jack replied calmly, though Sophia could feel the tension radiating from him. Properly signed and witnessed. Sophia is my wife under the law. Elijah Anderson's face flushed with anger. She ran away, stole my property, and ran off with this. Cowboy. I'm a grown woman, Sophia said, finding her voice. I took only what was rightfully mine, and I left of my own free will. You belong to me until I say otherwise, her father growled, taking a step toward her. Jack moved between them, his hand hovering near his gun. That's close enough, Anderson. The marshal stood up, his own hand on his revolver. Everyone calm down. We're going to sort this out civilly. Holloway produced a folded document from his pocket. This contract says she's mine. I paid good money for her. Let me see that, Davis demanded, taking the paper. He read it quickly, then looked up with a frown. This is dated 3 weeks ago. When were you married, Mrs. James? 2 weeks ago yesterday, Sophia replied. Davis handed the document back to Holloway. Well, gentlemen, I'm afraid you're out of luck. While this contract might have been valid when it was signed, it's superseded by an actual marriage. The lady is Mrs. James now, legally and properly. This is robbery, Holloway exclaimed. I paid $50 down. Then take it up with Mr. Anderson, the marshal suggested. He's the one who sold something that wasn't his to sell. Elijah Anderson's face contorted with fury. You little whore, he hissed at Sophia. After everything I did for you. Jack's fist connected with Anderson's jaw before he could finish the sentence, sending him sprawling to the floor. Don't you ever speak to my wife like that again, he said, his voice deadly quiet. Holloway reached for his gun, but Jeremy was faster, drawing and aiming in one smooth motion. I wouldn't, he advised coldly. Marshal Davis pulled his own weapon. That's enough. Mr. Holloway, Mr. Anderson, you're both leaving town today. If I see either of you back here causing trouble, I'll lock you up for disturbing the peace. Anderson picked himself up off the floor, wiping blood from his split lip. This ain't over, he promised, glaring at Jack. No one steals from Elijah Anderson. She was never yours to sell, Jack replied evenly. Now get out of my sight before I forget I'm a Christian man. Holloway helped Anderson toward the door, both men casting venomous glances back at Sophia. You'll regret this, Holloway warned. Both of you. When they were gone, Sophia released a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Jack immediately turned to her, his eyes searching her face. Are you all right? She nodded, though her hands were trembling. Yes. Thank you for defending me. The marshal sighed heavily. I'd advise you folks to be careful. Men like that, when they're humiliated, they can be dangerous. We'll be ready, Jeremy assured him. They left the marshal's office and walked down the main street toward the general store, where they had planned to purchase supplies before heading back to the ranch. Sophia felt as though a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. For the first time, she had faced her father not as a frightened daughter, but as a woman with rights and protections of her own. I'm proud of you, Jack told her quietly as they walked. Standing up to him like that couldn't have been easy. It was easier with you beside me, Sophia admitted, slipping her hand into his. Their shopping completed, they mounted their horses and prepared to leave town. As they passed the saloon, Sophia noticed her father standing on the porch, watching them with undisguised hatred. She held his gaze steadily, refusing to show fear. The ride back to the ranch was uneventful, but all three remained vigilant, aware that the confrontation in town might not be the end of the matter. When they arrived home, Clara greeted them with relief, having been anxious about their meeting with Anderson and Holloway. The marshal sided with us, Jeremy explained as they unloaded their supplies. Told those two to leave town and not come back. Do you think they will? Clara asked worriedly. Jack and Jeremy exchanged a look. We'll post a watch tonight, just to be safe, Jack decided. I wouldn't put it past them to try something. That night, as Jack prepared to take the first watch, Sophia helped him don his heavy coat against the evening chill. I wish you didn't have to do this, she said softly. It's just a precaution, Jack assured her, checking his revolver before holstering it. I doubt they'll actually come out here. Sophia wasn't convinced. My father can be very determined when he feels wronged. And very cruel. Jack cupped her face in his hands, his expression serious. If they come, they'll regret it. I won't let anything happen to you or this family. It's not me I'm worried about, Sophia admitted. Please be careful. Jack kissed her gently. Get some sleep. I'll wake Jeremy for the second watch, and I'll be back beside you before dawn. Sophia tried to sleep, but rest eluded her. Every sound made her start, imagining attackers approaching in the darkness. Eventually, she rose and dressed, making her way quietly to the kitchen to prepare coffee for Jack and Jeremy. She was just putting the pot on to boil when she heard the unmistakable crackle of flames. Rushing to the window, she saw the barn was on fire, orange flames licking up the wooden walls and illuminating the yard in a hellish glow. Fire! She screamed, running for the door. Jack! Jeremy! The barn's on fire. The house erupted into activity. Jeremy appeared from his bedroom, pulling on his boots as he ran. Clara followed, grabbing buckets from the kitchen. Sophia raced outside, her heart pounding with fear. Where was Jack? He'd been patrolling the perimeter of the property. Had he seen the fire? Or worse, had he encountered whoever set it? The heat from the burning barn was intense, the smoke acrid and choking. Jeremy organized a bucket chain from the well, but it was clear the structure couldn't be saved. Their priority now was preventing the fire from spreading to the house or other outbuildings. The horses, Sophia gasped, remembering the animals stabled in the barn. Without hesitation, she ran toward the burning building. Sophia, no, Clara shouted after her, but Sophia couldn't bear the thought of the horses trapped inside, suffering. As she neared the barn doors, a figure emerged from the smoke, leading two terrified horses. It was Jack, his face blackened with soot, his shirt singed in places. Jack! Sophia cried, relief washing over her. He handed the reins of the horses to her. Get them clear, he instructed, his voice rough from the smoke. There are 3 more inside. Before she could protest, he disappeared back into the inferno. Sophia led the rescued horses to a safe distance, tethering them quickly to a fence post before running back toward the barn. Jack appeared again, leading another horse and pushing a 4th ahead of him. His movements were slower now, and he was coughing violently. One more, he gasped as Sophia reached him. Let Jeremy go, she pleaded, seeing how exhausted he was. Jack shook his head stubbornly. No time. The roof's about to collapse. He turned back toward the barn, but Sophia grabbed his arm. Please, Jack, you'll die in there. For a moment, he looked as though he might argue, but then the sound of splintering would fill the air as part of the roof gave way. Jeremy rushed to join them, taking in the situation at a glance. I'll go, he said, starting forward. Before either Jack or Jeremy could enter the burning building, a shot rang out from the darkness beyond the yard. Jack cried out, staggering backward, a crimson stain spreading across his shoulder. Ambush! Jeremy shouted, drawing his gun and pulling Jack and Sophia toward the cover of the water trough. More shots followed, bullets splintering wood around them. Jeremy returned fire, aiming toward the flashes in the darkness. How many? Jack asked through gritted teeth, pressing his hand to his wounded shoulder. At least 2, Jeremy replied. Maybe 3. Sophia tore a strip from her petticoat and pressed it against Jack's wound, trying to stem the bleeding. We need to get you to the house. Jack shook his head. Too exposed. We'd be shot before we made it halfway. The gunfire continued, keeping them pinned behind the trough. The barn fire raged behind them, creating a deadly tableau trapped between flames and bullets. You've got nowhere to run. A voice called from the darkness, Holloway's voice. Send the girl out, and the rest of you can live. Go to hell. Jeremy shouted back, firing another round. A bullet struck the trough inches from Sophia's head, sending splinters flying. She flinched, but kept pressure on Jack's wound, fear for him overriding her own terror. Jack's hit bad, she told Jeremy urgently. We need to get him help. Jeremy's face was grim in the firelight. Clara's in the house. She'll bring rifles if she can reach us. As if on cue, shots rang out from the direction of the house Clara, firing from a window to provide covering fire. The attackers shifted their attention, giving Jeremy an opportunity. I'm going to circle behind them, he decided quickly. When I start firing, make a run for the house with Jack. Be careful, Sophia urged. Jeremy nodded, then slipped away into the shadows, moving low and fast. For several tense minutes, Sophia and Jack waited, the only sounds the crackle of the burning barn and Jack's labored breathing. Suddenly, gunfire erupted from a new direction. Jeremy, engaging the attackers from behind. Now, Jack urged, struggling to his feet with Sophia's help. They ran toward the house, Sophia supporting as much of Jack's weight as she could. Bullets kicked up dirt around them, but Clara's covering fire from the house kept the attackers from taking careful aim. They had nearly reached the porch when Sophia heard heavy footsteps behind them. She turned to see her father charging toward them, his face contorted with rage, a knife gleaming in his hand. You're not getting away this time, he snarled, lunging for her. Jack shoved Sophia aside, intercepting the attack despite his wounded shoulder. He grappled with Elijah Anderson, the two men struggling for control of the knife. Despite his injury, Jack was stronger, but Anderson fought with the desperate fury of a man with nothing to lose. The knife flashed in the firelight, and Jack cried out as the blade sliced across his arm. Sophia looked around frantically for a weapon, spotting a shovel leaning against the porch. She grabbed it and swung with all her strength, catching her father across the back. Anderson howled in pain, dropping the knife. Jack delivered a powerful punch that sent him sprawling in the dirt. Before he could rise, the barrel of a rifle pressed against his temple. "Don't move," Clara ordered, her fingers steady on the trigger. In the distance, the gunfire had stopped. Moments later, Jeremy appeared, hurting Holloway and another man at gunpoint. Both looked worse for wear, Holloway sporting a bloody nose, the other man limping badly. Marshal Davis and several townsmen arrived shortly after, having seen the fire from town and ridden out to investigate. They quickly took charge of the prisoners, securing them with ropes while the town doctor tended to Jack's wounds. "You'll live," the doctor pronounced after examining Jack's shoulder. "Bullet went clean through. You're lucky an inch to the left, and you'd be dead." Sophia hadn't left Jack's side since they'd reached the house, her hand clasped tightly in his good one. "Thank you, doctor," she said, her voice trembling with relief. As the marshal prepared to take the prisoners back to town, Sophia approached her father, who sat on the ground, his hands bound behind him. He glared up at her with pure hatred. "Why?" she asked simply. "Why couldn't you just let me go?" For a moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then his lip curled in a sneer. "No daughter of mine was going to make a fool of me. You were property to be sold, nothing more." Sophia felt an odd sense of calm wash over her. "I was never your property. And after today, I'm no longer your daughter. Goodbye, Elijah." She turned away, not waiting for his response, and returned to Jack's side. As the marshal and his men led the prisoners away, Jack pulled her close with his good arm. "Are you all right?" he asked softly. Sophia nodded, resting her head against his chest. "I am now." Dawn broke over the smoldering remains of the barn, the morning light revealing the full extent of the damage. The structure was a total loss, though thankfully, they had managed to save all but one of the horses. Jeremy and Clara were already discussing plans for rebuilding, their resilient spirits undimmed by the night's events. Jack, his arm in a sling, stood with Sophia at the edge of the yard, surveying the destruction. "We'll rebuild," he said confidently. "Better than before." Sophia leaned into his good side, drawing strength from his presence. "I'm sorry for bringing this trouble to your door." Jack turned to face her, his expression serious. "Don't ever apologize for that. You came into my life like a miracle, Sophia James. I'd face 100 men like your father to keep you safe." "I love you," Sophia said, the words coming easily now, as natural as breathing. "I think I started falling in love with you the moment you offered me a ride on your horse." Jack smiled, the corners of his eyes crinkling in the way she'd come to adore. "And I've loved you since I saw you standing tall against your fears. We're going to build a good life here, you and I." "Yes," Sophia agreed, gazing out at the land that had become her home. "We are." 1 year later, Sophia stood on the porch of their rebuilt home, watching Jack as he worked with the new colts in the corral. The ranch had not only recovered from the fire, but had flourished under their combined efforts. The new barn was larger and sturdier than the old one, and they'd added more grazing land by purchasing the adjacent property when it came up for sale. Sophia's hand rested on her swollen belly, feeling the baby kick beneath her palm. Their first child was due in less than a month, and Jack had been fussing over her like a mother hen, insisting she rest and take it easy despite her protests that pregnancy wasn't an illness. News had reached them 3 months ago that Elijah Anderson had died in prison, succumbing to a fever that swept through the cells. Holloway had been released after serving his sentence but had left the territory, reportedly heading for California. Their shadows no longer darkened Sophia's happiness. As she watched, Jack finished his work with the horses and walked toward the house, his stride easy and confident. Despite the scars he carried from that terrible night, both the visible one on his shoulder and the hidden ones in his memory, he had never shown any regret for taking her in, for making her his wife. "What are you doing out here?" he called as he approached. "You should be resting." Sophia smiled, holding out her hand to him. I'm perfectly fine. The baby and I needed some fresh air. Jack reached her side, laying his hand gently over hers on her belly. His face lit up with wonder as he felt their child move beneath his palm. Strong, like his mother, he murmured. Or her father, Sophia countered, leaning up to kiss him softly. Jack wrapped his arms around her, careful of her bump. I have something to show you, he said, a hint of excitement in his voice. Come with me. He led her around to the side of the house where a small garden was beginning to bloom Sophia's pride and joy. Next to it stood something covered with a large cloth. What is this? Sophia asked, curiosity piqued. Jack grinned and pulled away the cloth to reveal a beautiful wooden cradle, intricately carved with flowing designs of leaves and flowers. I've been working on it in secret, he explained. Do you like it? Tears sprang to Sophia's eyes as she ran her fingers over the smooth wood. It's beautiful, Jack. Absolutely perfect. I wanted our child to have something special, Jack said, watching her face with pleasure. Something made with love. Sophia moved into his embrace, overwhelmed with gratitude for this man who had saved her in every way a person could be saved. Our baby is already surrounded by love, she whispered, and always will be. As the sun began its descent toward the horizon, casting golden light across the land they'd built together, Sophia reflected on the journey that had brought her here. From a frightened young woman fleeing an unthinkable fate to a beloved wife and soon-to-be mother, her life had transformed in ways she could never have imagined. What are you thinking about? Jack asked, noticing her contemplative expression. Sophia smiled up at him, her heart full. I was thinking about that day you found me hiding in the brush, how scared I was, how uncertain everything seemed. And now I know that was the luckiest day of my life, she replied. The day a cowboy said I wasn't for sale and showed me what real love looks like instead. Jack kissed her tenderly, his arms strong and secure around her. No, he corrected gently. It was the luckiest day of mine. Together they stood, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant hues of orange and pink, the promise of tomorrow stretching before them like the endless Texas horizon, beautiful, challenging, and entirely their own.